All right. Hi, everybody. This is Tim Welly with FieldX Inc. Thank you for taking the time here today to learn a little bit more about our new application called FieldX Irrigation. I hope everybody can hear me okay. There is a Q&A tab over on the right side of the screen that you can click on to ask questions and let me know if you're having trouble hearing me or if you're not seeing what you're expecting to see. A bit about the agenda. First, we're going to go through some basic background on FieldX. I believe everybody here today is somewhat familiar with FieldX already, but just wanted to give a quick refresher on what the platform is all about. We'll do a demo of FieldX irrigation, and of course that will be the main focus of this meeting. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with some Q&A. FieldX is an agriculture record-keeping program. We provide consultants and growers the ability to collect, manage, and share your field data of all different types, and that's our main focus. And we have applications on the PC, iPhone, iPad, and web applications. Quickly going through what those applications are. We have FieldX Office for the PC, Dashboard for the web. Now those are two that we'll see today over the course of going through irrigation module. The apps, we have Journal, GeoNotes, and Sampling. More details on all of this can be found on our website. And as far as our premium modules, irrigation is one that we'll go through today. And then we have FieldRx for VRT fertility. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and jump right into the demo. And for that, I'm going to move over into our online dashboard. Now, FieldX dashboard has been available now for a little under a year. The main features that were available this past year were the ability to add and manage your grower farm and field data. This year, we have added support for certain pick lists, some of which will be used in the irrigation application, and we'll go into in more detail. And then we now have a way to launch FieldX irrigation from the online dashboard. Now, this is the same grower tree. If you've used FieldX for general record keeping, for scouting, sampling, those same fields will all sync over into the dashboard and be available for use in the application. Pick lists are new. The supported pick lists are over here on the left side. Now, previously, all of this was managed from FieldX Office on the PC, and now you're able to work with that here on the website as well. To launch irrigation, first, we would need to update your account. Well, you would need to have a FieldX account. We would need to update it to turn on FieldX irrigation. And then that is launched at the field level. And you can click on the little three dots here to the right of a field, and then click on FieldX irrigation. Okay. Then over here on the chart tab, just kind of have a quick view of what kind of data is going to be displayed there. We'll come into that in more detail in a bit. Okay. All right, so stepping back, let's go through how a field is set up. So you're starting with irrigation for the first time. You're interested in kind of kicking the tires, working with some data. How would one go about doing that? The first thing is that you can manage your irrigation equipment pick list. Okay. Now this is where you would be able to have your loggers equipment that would be added to the field and installed into a field. And then your various sensor types will be here as well. With this, for your sensors, we have an inventory set up here, so you can view as you're working through fixing sensors, replacing sensors through the year. You would be able to see what that quantity is available back in the office. Okay. To add a new item, you would just click Add Irrigation Equipment here. There would be a master item template that the equipment is based on. Today, for loggers, the equipment supported is from either Metos or one of Meter's decagons loggers, either the and of course I'm blanking on the names off the top of my head. Of course, EM50, and I'm blanking on the other name. I'm sorry, but more equipment is added. Is going to continue to be added through the year. Okay. I won't go into actually adding a pick list. Just know this is where you would be able to add and manage your list. Okay. And then if I'm going to go in and add that to a field, the place I would do that is in the Configuration Settings tab. Okay. Now this field is already set up. I have a logger set up here, so it'll be useful to kind of see what this is going to look like when it's done. So this is the logger that we have set up. It's active, it's running, it's pulling data. And then down here are the sensors that I have connected to this logger. And this is going to include, what the depth is, field capacity, permanent wilting point, and then you will also be able to enter your soil characteristics at that sensor location. All right, so let me go back, and I'm going to close out of that field and go to another field that doesn't currently have a sensor, and launch FieldX irrigation there to go through an example of setting up a new field. Configuration settings is where I would add this new logger. I can click Add Logger here. You can search by serial number to find the correct logger from your pick list, or you can choose from those that are available. I'm going to choose from the available loggers right now. I have one set up here that's not currently in any other field. Click on that. I can add a custom name if I'd like to. So if you have a specific name and as far as how you'd like to see that on the interface, you can enter that in. And then you can optionally enter in the GPS coordinates of that logger. So if you're going out and supporting, checking on that logger, this will be useful to help get you or your employees to where they need to be. When you're adding this in, you can tap on this Location Services button right here to automatically have your latitude and longitude filled in as you're putting this logger up. All right. Now I've added this logger. I'm ready to install sensors to it. I can click Install Sensor here to start that process. I'm going to choose from available sensors and select one that I'm going to add in here. A form will open where you can see the different data fields that you can use that related to this sensor. I'll add this sensor to port 1, and let's say it's at 6 inches as far as its depth. And then we have clay, sand, silt, and organic matter data fields here. We have a feature set up called a soil triangle, which is used to help place kind of where you're at in the specific percentage of sand, silt, and clay. So I'm just going to click anywhere on here, click right there, and then we entered in automatically had the clay, sand, and silt percent entered in there. And I can go ahead and enter in what my organic matter would be. From there, I can click on this button right here to calculate the field capacity and permanent wilting point based on the clay, based on these numbers up here. Now, if I already know what my field capacity and permanent wilting point is at this sensor location, I can just enter those in manually also. But in this case, I'll go ahead and just use the calculated value and then hit Save Changes. Okay, so that's a soil moisture sensor. I'll go ahead and add a rain gauge, a supported rain gauge, just for another example of what this would look like. So I'm going to choose from available and select the ECRN50. Say this is port 2, and the height above the ground, we'll say it's 6 inches, just for an example. Okay. Now, when I have my sensor set up the way that I want, and you'd want to add the whole suite of sensors down here, you can go ahead and hit install when you're ready for this logger to start collecting data. So this all can be set up now over the winter as you're preparing your loggers to be put into the field, and then you can hit install here to actually install it into the field. Now, when a logger is installed, we're automatically capturing what we're calling a sensor systems operations journal entry to help you keep track of the history of that equipment in a field. I can go ahead and add some comments into here. And then that will be saved into that sensor systems operations entry, along with, of course, that latitude, longitude. All right. Once it's installed, I can hit active for data to start coming in. And this activating logger also will record a sensor systems operations entry. So if you installed it 1 week, but you really didn't need that data for another week, you could leave that alone for a week and then just activate it when you're ready. Okay. All right, so then moving on into some of that history, I'm gonna go into the activity overview here and sort of work my way right on these tabs. The activity overview has your recommendation history and system history. So let me go into system history first. All right, so this is going to list all of the details of what has been happening with these loggers in the field. So you can see previously back on, well, yesterday, I installed a system, worked with it, activated it, removed it, and actually suspended that system yesterday so that I could have this field fresh for today's install and activation. Now this data, these journal entries sync up with the server, and they're going to be visible on the latest version of FieldX Office on your PC. And you would also be able to see that there were sensor systems operations entries over on your journal app as well. Now, of course, a number of these sensor systems operations entries are going to be recorded automatically in the configuration settings based on if I'm activating, deactivating, or what have you. But also, as you go through the season, you can click right here to record a field visit if you're going out and checking these sensors or working with them somehow. So I just clicked record field visit here. I'm gonna get a form open where I can specify my details here. Okay, so this is a logger I'm working on. I can select the actions that I can record here. I can check the system, repair the system, or replace a sensor. All right, so let's just say I'm going to check the system today. I've got my date here. I'm going to put a comment in here. I'm going to say everything looks good. Okay. If this is something I need to follow up on, I can use a follow-up flag as part of the journal entry. Hit save. Okay. And then that's been saved to my journal. Okay. All right, the other journal entries visible on this activity overview is the recommendation history. Now, right now, I don't have any recommendations for this field, and we'll come back to that recommendation history in a bit. Okay. All right. So let me go into another field here that has some actual data for the remainder of the demo. That field we just added, since I just turned the logger on, there won't be data right away because we haven't. It would only have one point that we would have called. So this field decagon 1, as we would be able to see in the system history here, has more information here and actual readings. So okay. Scrolling over to the right, I've got my map tab. Now this is going to show the field border and that logger location. So this is the georeference location that this logger is installed. Okay, or at least as I recorded it. You would be able to see your GPS location as your if you were to open this on your mobile phone, for example, and you were in this field, that will help you navigate to that spot. Okay. Sensor readings, I'll just mention this briefly. This is really a table of all the readings that have been coming through. So when you see something in the chart that is of interest or of concern, you'd be able to come into here and see the details of exactly what those readings were. All right, now we'll get into the chart tab. Okay. On the top half here is the main piece of the chart. We have the historical soil moisture readings here. And then we also have a rain gauge in this field. So we're going to be able to see on the blue bars, that's the rainfall. And then each of these lines is a soil moisture sensor at various depths. As I'm scrolling through, I'm able to see the details of what that reading was, what time it was, as well as what was there. So and I can select the time frame that I'm looking at. By default, 1 week of historical data will come up, but if you need 2 weeks of data or you want to tighten this up to just 3 days of historical data, you would be able to quickly select your zoom level here. The soil moisture can be displayed in either plant available water or you can toggle it over to volumetric water content. Looks like this one, I apologize, this field must have something going on there. The VWC isn't displaying, so we'll maybe go into a different field and show that later. Okay. All right, so that's this piece of the chart. Now, the space over here on the right is reserved for our soil moisture prediction. We've set up a soil prediction algorithm where the soil moisture levels are predicted at each sensor level, and each of these sensors is actually ending up with their own predictive model based on what's going on at that sensor. That would then be taking into account how the plant is drawing it down, how weather is impacting drawdown, things like that, which is going to be more accurate, or the idea is we would be more accurate using that predictive model at each depth and level versus trying to use a generic crop growth model. Now, this field does not have a prediction here, which is indicated right up here as well, where one or more predictions cannot be made. We will not make a prediction if we can't be somewhat confident in what that prediction is showing. So there are a number of reasons that predictions wouldn't be made. Sometimes it's just not enough data that has been collected yet. Sometimes there's bad data over the time frame that we're using to predict. And in this case, I clicked on it and I can see that this field has oscillating or flatlining of at least 16 hours. So over the time period that we're using to predict, we have some flatlining going on at each of these sensor depths, and thus a prediction is not being made and is not being shown. Now, what that would look like, I have just a screenshot to make it easy of another field that has some prediction. Actually, it is this field, just over a different time frame where we didn't have the oscillation or flatlining. And essentially, it's going to show these dotted lines in the same color as that sensor level that will indicate the predicted value. And as you scroll over this, normally this popover would display the details of exactly what was being shown there. Okay. All right, back to this field. Now, if for whatever reason you're working with this data and you don't want that prediction, or maybe when you make the recommendation you don't want to include that in the report, you can turn predicted soil moisture off. And then if you were to select week, 3 days, whatever, then that whole time frame will be historical data, and the predicted time frame will be removed. All right. The other component to this chart is this crop milestone chart down here. And as I mentioned, we are integrated with the rest of the FieldX platform. You've got your same grower farm field information and everything coming here. And we're also able to pull in your planting data and some scouting data. So I changed my zoom level to 1 month to see the kinds of things that are displayed on this crop milestone chart. Okay. I've got the planting date over here. Okay, and the planting details are always visible here on the top. So I've got the crop is cotton, variety is the CO8792. Technology is Roundup Ready, and I planted back on January 4th, 2019 with a DIP days after planting of 21. So every 7 days, it's going to show an icon here for the days after planting. So if you're zoomed in just a week, you should be able to see on this chart, in addition to up here on top, what your current days after planting is. This one right here, this is a cracking, that's a growth stage as well. And if I go over into Office, I can go ahead and create a new journal entry for this field. Let's just say we want to go ahead and scout today on this field. Just jump over to crop observations and put in a new growth stage. I'll hit save. Oops. And close my journal entry. And then I'd be able to click sync here. It's going to upload that new data to the server. Okay. And then if I go back here and refresh my chart page, I can see I've got my new growth stage here. So right as I'm working with my soil moisture data, thinking about what irrigation recommendation I need to make, you'll have that days after planting and current growth stage right at your fingertips if you're using FieldX. Okay. All right. Now back to that sensor systems operations entry. Now that we've started working with FieldX, we can go back. Let's go back to this for just a minute, so I can talk through, how that is going to be displayed here as well. So I created those sensor systems operations entries over on the irrigation application, and then over here, I'm able to see in my field journal tab um, all of those activities. So I can quickly see on this field, this system was removed here, was installed, activated, okay? And then I can see the detail comments, or general comments about what actually happened. So those comments I entered in before, they're showing up in the general comments tab. And here in field 5, this is where we created those new sensor systems operations entries. So they're showing up here just as I had saved them over on the irrigation app. Okay. Now, of course, when I create an irrigation recommendation, that is the same kind of journal entry. It's a recommendation that you would create that is also created on the PC. It's just a special one that was created from the irrigation app. So those recommendations will show up here as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a recommendation for this field. So I've got my soil moisture data. Let's say in this case, I don't want the prediction because the data isn't good to predict. I can click up here to create that recommendation, and a simple form is going to come up. All right. And I can fill in whichever of these data fields that I need to make my recommendation clear. I'm just going to put in some data here in a few of these. Okay. Hit Save Changes. The recommendation was created successfully. Now, along with the data I've entered in here, that recommendation takes a screen grab of this chart page. So you would be able to see this data when you create that irrigation rec report and send that to the grower. Okay. Now, of course, on my activity overview, I go into my recommendation history. I would be able to see these irrigation recommendations. And if for whatever reason I had made a mistake in one of these and need to edit it, I can do that here as well. Let's say 1.5 inches instead of 1. Okay, save that. That'll sync up and save on the server. And then I'd be ready to do a report. All right. So the irrigation rec report is done back in the dashboard. And you can do this report at a field level, or you can do it across multiple growers at once. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do this just for this one field. So I can click on this button right here with the 3 vertical dots, click on Irrigation Rec Report. I choose how many days of data I include. In this case, 1 will be sufficient because I just created that recommendation today. And then I can click Generate. All right, so then this is what that Irrigation Rec Report will look like. It's going to include your grower farm and of course your field. Okay. It'll include the date in the header and a title for it, Irrigation Recommendation Report. It has the crop information, just as it's listed over on that chart page. And then it includes that screen grab of the chart. Okay. Now, since I turned prediction off and adjusted the zoom, it is grabbing exactly what I was seeing there. So you have quite a bit of control over what this is going to look like. You would just adjust the chart the way you want before creating that recommendation, right? And then down here, I have my details. Now, one thing I didn't mention before in the chart tab that's also displayed here is the rainfall total over the time period displayed on the chart is included here. So over the 7 days that is included in this chart above here, a total of 2.36 inches of rain fell on this field. So that'll be something that you can keep in mind as you're creating those irrigation recommendations as well. Okay, and that's just down here at the bottom of the screen. And as I expand by changing these zooms or move my zoom levels, that rainfall total is going to change based on whatever I have included in the chart here. All right. So that's the basics of how you would use that chart, review the chart, create your recommendations. And then just wanted to kind of reiterate here a bit about this activity overview now that we've got recommendations as well as system history. As you're coming into the field or seeing something going on with the data, you can always be coming back here and viewing what those recommendations were, recent recommendations were, and everything that happened on that field related to the actual equipment. So if there's issues with the equipment, spikes in the data, what have you, you can see what was done as you go through the season. All right. Now, there are a few email alerts that you can set up as well. There are two types of alerts. One is called a PAW threshold alert. And what that's going to do is send an email. It will trigger an email when one of these sensors falls below the PAW threshold. And so once it drops below, the next time that email is triggered, it will send you an email. And we're not sending emails for every single time the sensor drops below on every single field individually. It's aggregated into a larger email. Okay. And let me pull up an example here of what one of these alert emails would look like. I think I accidentally closed one from earlier. Okay, so here's an example of what that email alert would look like. Okay, now this is the second type of alert. This is not the PAW threshold alert. All the fields that I have in this account are above their PAW thresholds, but this is a logger sensor equipment alert. So when there's an issue with the sensor, if it's flatlining, if it's missing sensor values in this case, it's going to send you an email and let you know. Now you control who's going to get these emails. They can be sent to you and you alone. They can be sent to your growers as well. You have control over what that looks like. And that PAW threshold alert email and the bad data alert email are separate. So if you're managing the equipment and in charge of keeping it running, maybe you're the only one who needs, you and your company are the only ones that need the bad data alert email, but your growers would be interested in seeing the PAW threshold alert. You have complete control over who is seeing that email. Okay. Save the changes there. Okay, so that's a real quick overview of the functionality. Now I'm going to go back into the slides for just a minute here and talk through what we're looking at with pricing. Now, there are two tiers for pricing on FieldX irrigation. First is the basic tier. That gets you the ability to use the application, view soil moisture sensor data, create your irrigation recommendations, and generate PDF irrigation rec reports. The price for that is $25 per logger per month, and you're only paying for the months that it's installed, of course. The advanced subscription, that includes everything in basic, in addition to the full integration with FieldX, the record keeping software. So that'll bring in your planting info and your growth stage information right onto that chart. And then that also includes a soil moisture prediction feature, and that is $35 per logger per month. Now, I didn't include this in here, but there is a free tier as well for irrigation, where customers could just be set up as grower sub accounts in your FieldX account, and then you're able to get a view only insight into FieldX irrigation. So you wouldn't be creating the recommendations. They wouldn't be creating the recommendations in that case, or even adjusting configuration settings at all. It would just be a view only of the data that's here. So for those people who kind of need to know the data but aren't actually managing the equipment. All right. With that, are there any questions or anything else that I should go into more detail on? I'd be glad to do so. And we will make this webinar available. It's being recorded, and we'll make it available via online as well. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the time and attention today, and we will be following up and adding this webinar to our website shortly. Have a great day.